All right, one more thing here on Locked On Heat. Will the Heat sign somebody for the playoff push? We're going to explore that today on a bonus episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real Jam Radio. I'm here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. Two remaining questions left over from our episode of the biggest burning questions for the Heat over the final stretch of the season. Let's jump right in, David. I have one question left. You have one question left. My question is this. Are the Heat going to make an addition to the roster between now and the end of the season to help for this playoff push? They have 14 players under contract now. They have room under the salary cap to sign a player to a prorated veteran minimum. There are players out there. We've already seen some guys get bought out and signed. We saw Haywood Highsmith sign. Not necessarily that he was on the board for Miami, but there are players being signed for playoff pushes. And as long as a player is signed to a team by March 1st, that player is eligible. So we have a little bit for the playoffs. So we have a little bit of time here. I do think the Heat will take their time trying to make the right addition. But we have seen the Heat in the All-Star break in the past use this time specifically to make those additions. You get a couple days of practice going into the final stretch here. It just doesn't sound like the Heat are going to make that sort of addition right now. It sounds like if they do anything, they're going to wait a little bit. There's no timeline for them, right? They have 14 players under contract because Terry Rozier is still occupying a roster spot, at least for now. So they're not like under the gun with the 23-day, hey, you got to sign somebody to fill out your roster. So if they want to make a move, they can. The question is there anybody out there worth making that move for right now?
Yeah, it's a interesting kind of two-part question there for me, because that question you just asked, is there any player worth adding? I don't know that there is. We talked about following the All-Star weekend, does Keshad Johnson get extra minutes here? I think you've already got the player that could provide a boost on this roster in terms of like, oh, this is a guy who just hasn't gotten much playing time. Maybe he will, etc. Which of the veteran names out there really stands out and has a clear-cut role on this Heat team that's going to make such a great addition? Like, if they're available right now, by and large, I would say it's for a good reason. Like, I haven't done a deep dive on these names because I don't know that any name has really stood out. I guess the name that most people have mentioned is Lonzo Ball. I know Pat Riley was enamored of him coming out of college and the draft, et cetera. So I guess that's a possibility. I just don't know how realistic it is that he would be on Miami's radar and that they have a role for him to kind of help this actual team. Like, that's the thing, is like those players may have a chance, but they're probably pretty limited. And if that's being the case, what's the point of adding them to this roster? So that's one question. And then the flip side of it is, why the hell would they consider Miami? Like, we just had a long segment arguing whether or not Miami even manages to avoid the play-in tournament. I know these guys are probably looking for jobs and they want to be able to prolong their careers. But if that's the case, they're probably also looking to make a playoff run or to join a team and actually be able to contribute to something meaningful. I don't know that any of those veteran names out there is looking at Miami and saying, yeah, that's the place I want to be able to help out. This isn't Alec Burks looking at this group and saying, yeah, I want to be able to make an addition. I want to be able to change something here with this team. This isn't Kevin Love saying, yeah, this is a group that's right there. I want to be able to provide some veteran leadership. Veteran leadership isn't what this team is missing. It's missing top-tier talent, and top-tier talent just isn't available in the buyout market. So what's the hell's the point? I don't know that any player out there is looking at Miami as a viable option in order to contribute to something that's going to not just be meaningful, but also add some value or reflect some value in them as individual players, so that they could be able to contribute to something. Because we made the point when Love joined this organization, like, he wasn't very good on the floor, but his veteran leadership really did make a difference. And we saw that, and we heard that in the locker room. We saw that from other players, that they gravitated towards a guy who had been there and knew what this next phase of the season was all about. He wasn't playing particularly well. He had his moments, but he wasn't great overall. But the veteran leadership was crucial. I don't know if this group needs veteran leadership. I don't think that that's missing necessarily. I just think it's more about adding talent to this roster. And I don't know that any of those names is talented enough to make that much of a difference.
Yeah, it's not really worth exploring the names right now because they're not really out there. Like, we could talk about a Mason Plumlee or something like that. Like, I don't know. Now, somebody could shake loose here, right? You know, maybe the Sacramento Kings do something crazy and waive DeMar DeRozan, or Dallas decides to let Chris Middleton out of his contract and let him explore other possibilities. But to your point, those are players who I think would be looking to join a playoff team for a stretch run here, or a team that is in a similar spot to Miami but has a lot more playing time to offer. A team like Milwaukee, for instance, or something like that. I don't know. But I do think if you're a player who might be more on the developmental part of their career, that's where the Heat I think are interesting to you, as opposed to a veteran. I'm with you. I don't think a veteran looks at Miami and says, that's the team I need to join right now. I think maybe it's more of a player that says, I'm trying to make sure I make it in the league. And maybe if I get a little bit of that Miami Heat culture rubbed off on me a little bit here, I could stick in the league for a little while. But I don't know that those are the names that are going to excite Heat fans or necessarily even help them in a major way for a playoff push. Now, if that player happens to be a big man, certainly that could be interesting. But the Heat have made it this far without having that emergency break glass in case of emergency center on the roster. My sense is that they're fine just playing out the rest of the season without that center on the roster. If they were going to make that addition, if they felt like they really needed to make that addition, they would have made it earlier. They would have made it earlier in January, December, when they still had enough room under the cap to go out and get that guy. Maybe they were waiting for the buyout market, but it doesn't really seem like that's going to be a viable option. By the way, they could have always waited for the buyout market. They could have signed somebody earlier in the year, and then they could have still explored the buyout market because they could release Terry Rozier right now, still have enough money under the cap to sign 2 players to prorated. They have enough room under the cap right now to sign 2 players under prorated minimums. They just need the roster spot, and that's why they would have to waive Rozier in that scenario. But will they make a roster addition? Possibly. My guess is yes. My guess is that 15th spot is filled, but it's not going to be in a way that I think excites Heat fans. My guess is that you just promote Myron Gardner before the end of the year from his 2-way, sign him to that multiple team-friendly year contract, and then backfill his 2-way with who cares, and then you just do that at the end of the year, because we've seen the Heat use that spot in that way several different times. And by the way, it's worked, right? And Myron Gardner's a good player and he deserves it, but I don't think that's necessarily the name or the move that would excite Heat fans. David, I know you have one more big question left here for after the All-Star break. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Heat. Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year. Whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title, it adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick your picks cash in, but you can also they can also send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. David, I know you have one last question. What is it?
Yeah, kind of connecting to your first question there, because I think I would almost 100% guarantee that they're not going to be able to add any kind of veteran name out there, just for a variety of reasons. And so the Gardner path seems very likely. And so you're not going to get that boost, but maybe that boost already is on the roster. And so when I look at this group, because we've seen different players kind of pop, and I think this was a question of mine even leading into the season, but which role player is going to pop for this team? Is it going to continue to be Jaime Jaquez? Can he end the season playing effectively? Because he had kind of tapered off a little bit, and then he's had some decent games and then kind of falls off again. So do we get to see the the Jaime Highway for the rest of the season? Will it be open to traffic over the last 26 games? Is it? And I think it's very unlikely. Is this Niko Jovic somehow have a clear role where he can thrive? Is it Giannis? Is it Davion Mitchell coming off the bench and still providing that spark the same way he did last year when he was acquired after the trade deadline? So there are a lot of role players on his team. Is it Gardner? Maybe we've seen him provide some nice minutes here and there. Is it Keshad Johnson? It just, because this team lacks the hierarchy of the top tier talent, it's kind of much more open to an egalitarian sort of contribution from a number of players. And we've seen a number of players fit that description over the first 56 games of the season. But now you're looking at the last 26 games, and somebody needs to be able to fill it again. And I don't know who that player is because it just doesn't seem likely. I think the most likely answer is probably Kel'el Ware, but I think he's almost too good to be considered a role player. He's just too talented. He's had that starting opportunity, so he's not that guy. But I'm looking for some of the other guys that are trying to carve out those minutes and have that kind of consistent impact. And I'm not sure who it is. It's probably going to be Jaime, just based on what we've seen from him.
I would consider Jaime better than this. I mean, he's a sixth man only because they're trying to maintain that role for him because he's that boost off the bench that they need. Jaime's popped, man. Like if you asked this question at the beginning of the season, answered. Jaime popped. He's up and down, sure, but like he's largely been pretty consistent. He's still third, by the way, in 6 Man of the Year odds on FanDuel last I checked. So
behind who?
Behind you're quizzing me. He's behind 2 other guys.
Yeah. It's usually how third works. Yeah, you're right.
I'll tell you right now, he is behind.
No, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Like I'm a little surprised.
Naz Reid and Keldon Johnson. Yeah. So Keldon Johnson might get it because the Spurs are so good. And a weird thing for the Spurs is that Wemby might not end up being eligible. And if Mitch Johnson loses out on Coach of the Year, which he's not the favorite right now, like does Keldon Johnson become sort of the Tyler Hero from a few years ago, where it just felt like we had to give an award to this team with a really good record? Not that Tyler Hero didn't deserve 6 Man of the Year when he won it, but that was like the one end of season award that the Heat got. And I just wonder if Keldon Johnson ends up becoming that guy for San Antonio. And Naz Reid, I mean, the production is crazy with him. I mean, he's an established 6 Man of the Year favorite. So, but he can win it. So he's popped. Pelle Larsson has popped. Consider Pelle popped, right?
Yeah.
So I think maybe a better version of your question is, what other role player pops? Like, and because those guys have popped and it hasn't been good enough. The Heat need somebody else to pop. And the name we always go back to, if the Heat could have anybody pop, it would be Nico, right? Not only because you signed him to the extension, obviously, but because that spot as that third big, if he could be more consistent, not only making shots, but playing with physicality, keeping his head in the game, not allowing like these defensive whiffs and these brain farts because he's so frustrated, he just kind of gets in his own head. If he can eliminate that stuff and obviously start making shots, I think the boost to Miami would be pretty apparent. I think that would be a pretty dramatic, helpful thing if Nico can close. And by the way, 26 games doesn't sound like a lot, but in this way, it is a lot for a guy like Jovic to string together a bunch of good games and at least go into the summer feeling good, and for the Heat to kind of come into that summer feeling better about the contract that they signed him to. Because it's been a bad year for him, no question.
Absolutely.
But there's still enough time as an individual player to salvage it here.
Is it Terry Rozier? Do you think he's the guy that pops for this group?
Who's his colleague? Smoochies? Sugar lips?
Sugar lips. I don't know if that was it. I think it was just sugar, but either way.
Maybe it's Smoochies who pops. That'll do it for us today here on One More Thing of Locked On Heat. Make sure you subscribe, follow Locked On Heat so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Join the Cookie Gang and get Locked On Heat ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonheat.supercast.com to join the club.